Since the mass murder at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High, the issue of gun safety pretty much consumed our community and taken over the conversation at the state capitol.
Some of the families from Parkland traveled there to seize that moment and lobby lawmakers for change. Attorney John Willis is a former Parkland commissioner who traveled with them, helped the families through the process and meetings with the governor and lawmakers, and he is right here with us today. So glad you can join us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, so you didn't unfortunately hear everything that Representative Oliva said for technical reasons, and yet, you know, he, among other things, defended his advocacy for teachers, maybe even some other faculty staff, having guns in the classroom. Is that a good idea for you?
Well, I don't want to speak for all of Parkland because it's a diverse community, but I can tell you that the group of parents that went up uniformly spoke out against the Marshall program while we were there.
Right.
The governor was kind enough to meet with us. He told us he was not in support of it. We understood when we were up there that the polling was not in support of it. Representative Oliva did speak to our group for over an hour before we went up to explain his position on it. When our bus arrived in Tallahassee, Oliva was there along with the rest of the Republican leadership and some Democratic leaders, and they tried to sell the plan to us essentially as a compromise.
Doesn't sound like you've bought it, however.
No. And I think if you ask the majority of the parents who went up with us and our elected leaders, they would tell you if we could remove the Marshall program from this bill, they would be much happier.
Although the Marshall program, as it stands now, as amended, is completely voluntary, you know, Florida in every issue is such a diverse state in many ways, among which is rural and urban. And there's great support for this in the rural areas, not any support in the urban areas where we live. Do the families accept that even if this becomes law and part of the law, that where we live here, it will likely not be implemented?
And I think that's the only reason that you're seeing some support for the bill, even though they're unhappy with that portion of it, is there is a sense in the Parkland community that we want to make sure that we bring back for our kids, and you've seen these really eloquent, articulate Douglas kids. Amazing. So the parents, this group, and a bunch of people who didn't travel with us went up there to support them. And I think as a whole they would say to you, we don't want to lose the things that they're offering, because, Glenn, you heard me say this, to some degree, even though it doesn't do all of the things we've asked for, it's historic to get a Republican legislature in Florida to do anything. So I think they don't want to lose all of these you know, raising the age to 21 and the mental health perspective on this. But they don't, I don't think Marjorie Stoneman Douglas would be particularly happy about having a bill in her name that arms teachers.
John, the principal demand from these amazing students, their parents, others, you know, throughout the state was assault weapons shouldn't be in the hands of civilians. These students on this program, other media have said, ban these weapons. The bill that the legislature is going to pass does not do that.
Yeah, and quite honestly, the unique part of this is when we got off the bus in Tallahassee, Speaker Oliva was there, met us at the hotel. Mr. Schachter, whose son was tragically killed, was there and asked the members that were there, does anybody have an assault weapon? And Mr. Oliva raised his hand candidly. I give him credit for that. And there was a discussion about what the necessity of having an assault weapon is. And when I spoke to the House Appropriations Committee, I spent all of my time telling them this bill does not go far enough. It needs an assault weapon ban. The reality of it is, the pragmatic side of me has to tell you, it's not going to happen in this session.
When we spoke outside the governor's office after your meeting, something you said struck me, in that the governor, who has a plan of his own and is against arming teachers, and there is always the question of might he veto any bill and kill everything. And you had said that it struck you as very important that he told the families to take back a message, a positive message. Look, this is a good thing. This is historic. Do they think that?
I don't think that they think that anything other than what they're demanding, which makes common sense to most of America, is anything less than that they're going to be happy with, and I commend them for it. They certainly know a way to just cut through all of it and say what should happen. So no. In regard to the governor told us to tell them this bill is going to get done. He also told us he does not support the Marshall Program. We're aware that he has at least line item veto ability as to appropriations. So there's some discussion that if this bill goes through as it is, that he has the ability potentially to remove the funding for the Marshall Program.
Yeah. John, you are a former elected official in Parkland, city commissioner. A current city commissioner, Dan Daly, who's been on this program, has proposed banning gun magazines that hold more than, I think, 10 bullets, as they do in California. And other cities, Coral Gables, Coral Springs, Mayor Skip Campbell there, are all eager, and in Weston, Mayor Sturmer, to take action. But a state law now prevents local municipalities from passing any law on guns stronger than state laws. Do you hope that's repealed?
It needs to be repealed. I mean, there's some questionable parts of that, whether it's even constitutional, that the governor could remove someone in a municipal position because they happen to advocate. And so these the positions of being a county commissioner or a city commissioner these days, it's a perilous position for them because they want to advocate, but they may ultimately have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees if they take
themselves,
not personally.
Yes, personally. Yeah.
John Willis, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for